Hey guys, welcome to an episode of Box Office Addict. This is not like a short video or an official part of the episode guides where it was like, I think the last episode was like 106. This is just kind of like a one off thing to talk about this because I haven't really talked about any new box office for months now. In particular, I didn't talk about like Godzilla versus Kong when it performed better than expected. And then, of course, A Quiet Place 2, which opened a few weeks ago. And everybody thought like, "Oh my god, the box office is back. It opened to $47 million. Everyone's going back to the theater." And we've only been out now. Let's see, what, like 2.5 weeks, 2 weeks since Quiet Place 2 came out, and we're already starting to see the box office not bouncing back again, which means that either the media is getting way too excited about this idea of the box office coming back to 100%, which I don't think it did, and I don't think A Quiet Place 2 was proof of that, or that maybe just the movies that were out didn't have a high enough interest for people to want to go see them. That's really where the debate's going to come down. So that's why this video is called "In the Heights, Why Did It Bomb?" Because that's going to be the thing. Was it either the politics? And I don't mean this in the sense that people think that, like I'm saying, because this film is a diverse film based off a diverse play, that put people off. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, was this overhyped by the media and analysts for that element? Like, oh, this is going to be the Black Panther of Latin-based musicals. So, who knows? Because all I keep saying is everyone's saying like, oh, representation, representation. This is going to be a big deal for the Latino community of the United States, and like everyone's really excited about this. Critics just sucked the dick of this movie. It's got 96% on Rotten Tomatoes and 85 on Metacritic. It's one of the best reviewed musicals, like, since I guess La La Land would be the only comparison. Everybody was predicting this was going to open in the mid 20s to possibly $30 million, and it opened to $11 million. It was beat by A Quiet Place 2. So there's a lot to cover here. There's a lot of factors here. Now, I have seen In the Heights, the musical, on stage. I've seen it actually a couple of times. It could be your step up. It's not the step up 3D of the decade. It's not at all. Although it does have the same director of the classic Step Up 3D and Crazy Rich Asians. But I've seen In the Heights. I saw it a few years ago, actually. I think, what was it, about 5 years ago? And I remember thinking at the time, like, this, I really like the songs. It's catchy. The lead character is really likable, Yuznavi, who was originally played by Lin-Manuel Miranda on Broadway. And it was really a breakout show for him. In particular, his lyricism and his performance. So they were going to make this movie years ago. In 2011, Paramount was going to make this film for $37 million, and Kenny Ortega was going to direct it. And it was supposed to come out, but they thought the budget was too high. So there was a point pre-Hamilton that Miranda was going to be the lead in a big film adaptation of his musical, and it was going to be this big movie in 2011. And I think it had come out then in 2011, when it was still more relevant and he was more of an unknown. I think this could have performed better. But I think at this time, I'm not really sure. I question the reputation and the IP of In the Heights, for one thing. Like, I wonder how many people actually know it in the songs. Like, it wasn't some phenomenon. It didn't, like, it's not like one of the 10 biggest Broadway shows of all time. You know? I never liked musicals. Also, pirates are the biggest customers of entertainment, and Hollywood's more keen on fighting pirates than what would happen. Well, there's a few factors here, right? So, like, HBO Max has been releasing films simultaneously when they come out at the box office. So, for example, uh, Godzilla versus Kong opened to what, 31 million, and was released on HBO Max the same week. So that clearly had a little bit of impact on the opening week. And now, pre-pandemic, you could have made an argument that Godzilla versus Kong would have made like $800 million, because it still made over 400 million during the pandemic. So as time has gone on, The question was when theaters started to open, the pandemic lessening when these movies open. So the HBO Max release with the movie coming out made sense during the pandemic. So, like, Tom and Jerry's an example of this, or Jude and the Black Messiah. I don't know if it makes sense anymore now. So, for instance, The Conjuring, the third film in the Conjuring franchise, not made by James Wan, opens to $24 million. So that's far below the previous two Conjuring movies in the opening box office. We're gonna have to go look at those real quick, but I know they opened better than that. I just don't know the exact numbers off the top of my head. So the first Conjuring opened to $41 million and made 320 million worldwide, and The Conjuring 2 opened to $40 million and made $321 million worldwide. So you would have to assume that this film in the franchise could have opened to 35, maybe even 40 million like the other two's film. The movie looked corny and fake. Yeah, well, I'll say this about In the Heights. It is super freaking corny. It's the corniest, most cheeseball like musical you could possibly imagine. I mean, that was my biggest issue with it when I saw it. It wasn't the songs. I really liked the music and the choreography and the location and all that, but man, it has got the most cliche storylines you have ever heard, you've ever seen, and stuff like that. I mean, it was like it's just about like, oh, my parents are taking care of me and I'm struggling in this neighborhood and I want better for my life, or like, oh, I lost my parents and there's this old woman who raises me, and me and her dream about our life away from here, or like you have the comedy sidekick, or like the hard working father who put everything on the line for his daughter, or a guy who's really struggling at his job and wants to do more. I mean, like every storyline, it's like it goes back to the most basic types of stories that you would see in any TV show, any generic movie. None of the characters are complex. None of the character storylines are original or interesting, or even an original, interesting take on it. Well, it's not like a woe is me depressing musical. It's not it's actually very vibrant and full of life, but it's like most musicals, the book is like the weakest part of it. It's very rare that you get a musical with a really good book. Typically they do have pretty cliche cheesy storylines. But In the Heights, especially, what really disappointed me when I saw it was just this is me talking about the stage show, not the movie. Is it's just like, yeah, it's like the cheesiest thing ever. I mean, it's just sentimental, like wish wash to try and make you like cry because a certain character dies at some point. And you're just supposed to feel bad. Now, that doesn't mean it still didn't have emotional merit, and it also has some really funny moments. Mexican here. These stories are made for Hispanics from the US. People in here in Mexico and Latin America hate these movies. Also, gaming is dead. What was the last successful musical? Greatest Showman, right? Did that come out after La La Land? I think so, right? That was like 2017. And some people are trying to compare this to The Greatest Showman, where they think like word of mouth. Yeah, Sweeney Todd has a really good story, as opposed to all really a lot of Stephen Sondheim stuff's that way. But here's this is what I want to talk about though. Like, let's eliminate the HBO Max factor. I do think that affected The Conjuring a little bit, but I also think interest is just down because God, there's so much to cover here. It's hard to like stay on one train of thought. But like, let's for instance bring up A Quiet Place Part Two. When A Quiet Place Part Two opened to the 47 million, and everyone was like, "Wow, this is what it would have opened to pre-pandemic," and this is a sign the box office is back. I'll make an argument here. I think A Quiet Place Two would have opened even better. I think it was going to open to like 75, 80 million dollars. I don't think it was just going to open to 55 million dollars or 45 million dollars. I think A Quiet Place 2 was going to have gigantic opening numbers. I think that 47 million, while it's great for the era we're in right now, I think the movie would have opened to way more than that had it just been normal year. Yes, I'd recommend everything from Stephen Sondheim. Even his lesser work is fantastic. But the reason I want to bring up this is that A Quiet Place 2 is still doing well overall. It's still the first film to make over 100 mil domestic. It's probably going to end up somewhere at 140, 150 million as of right now, probably 145 million. It's going to make over 250 to 300 million dollars worldwide. It won't be as successful as the first film and it costs more, but still it's going to be a profitable film. The question becomes now though, because we have Cruella here, which came out on Disney Plus, which you have to pay for at the same time. Now, how well if Cruella would have done if it wasn't for COVID? Would this movie have opened to $40 million and made like 500 million instead of like it's probably going to make, I'm assuming, over $200 million? This is the issue right now with covering the box office and this kind of analysis like this, right? Because are people really wanting to go back to the theater? What's the interest of the films that are coming out? Are releasing the films at the same time on streaming platforms as them coming out in theaters? How's that affecting it? There's so many things here. It's like trying to solve all these fucking equations. Like, I don't think the movies are back to 100%. Every weekend's been a 60% decline from the year before. Well, not exactly last year, but like 2019, right? And everyone keeps saying, I see on all these analysis websites and everything, that, oh, the box office is back and this didn't do well because of this or that. So, for instance, let's look at Deadline, which is like the biggest box office website on the internet. Like they're the kings of this stuff, and they have been for a long time. So they bring up John M. John M. Chu directing this, and it being Lin-Manuel Miranda. And let's bring this up. Maybe Lin-Manuel Miranda just isn't as hot of a commodity as Hollywood likes to think he is, because I don't think he is. I think Hamilton's huge, and I think anything Hamilton related is popular. And I know Moana was successful, but I think I think that was successful on its own merits. But I think that they keep thinking like, oh, let's put him in Mary Poppins Returns. Let's do an adaptation of In the Heights, even though it's not really as prescient as it was a long time ago. And then you have to factor in like they just keep throwing money at this guy, saying like, hey, he's box office gold, he's a movie star. But do we have any proof that he's a movie star and not just a Broadway star? Like, I think if he does a play on Broadway, it's guaranteed to be a hit, right? It's guaranteed to make like at least $100 million right now if he puts his name on something. But is he a celebrity, like a movie star, just because like Saturday Night Live or the media and everyone tries to perpetuate this idea that everybody loves Lin-Manuel Miranda? He was on a season of Carrie. I mean, and I like him, by the way. I'm not saying I dislike him, but is he really like that famous cinematically? Like people are like, oh, he's associate. Like, do people know what In the Heights is? Like, do we know what do most people know what this musical is? How popular of an IP is this? I know what it is, and I've seen it. And I know some of the songs, and I know that he was in the original version of it. But like, did people see the trailers for this movie and were like, oh my god, they're finally doing In the Heights? I mean, Cats was a much more popular IP, and it didn't do well. So, but then you have stuff like Les Miserables. I don't know. It's weird because this is better reviewed than a lot of those other movies. I mean, this film is super acclaimed, and everyone was saying like this is the film that's bringing back the movie theaters. Audiences are going to go love this and celebrate this. It's got dancing and celebration, and now the arguments are word of mouth because of the cinema score. So, this is a really interesting article, right? Because I feel like they're trying to make some excuses here. And this is why I bring up the diversity point. Once again, I'm not bringing that up to say, like, I think people didn't like this because they felt some SJW pandering. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, did this underperform in the sense that the overanalysis or overestimation of its box office was based on that? A lot of it was based on, hey, this, which I think falls into film critics. I think film critics are overpraising this film a little bit for that reason, saying like, "Wow, look how wonderful of a celebration this is of a community that's not represented in film enough. People are going to show up in droves to go see this thing. This is really going to matter." And I think, like we see a lot of the time, people really overestimated that versus how well it's going to do. One, as a musical, and two, how popular of a musical is it, and how well do people know it? as opposed to people are going to see a trailer with, Hispanic actors and some black actors dancing and singing, and it's going to get people really excited. I don't think that gets people really excited. I think that's a miscalculation to just think that that alone is a big enough factor to make people want to go see a movie. Um, I even think with Black Panther, I think as important and big as Black Panther did because of the nature of it having so many black actors in a big movie. I think it was honestly just part of being the MCU too, and just the character and the franchise and everything. I think it was the power of the MCU. Like Captain Marvel made over $1 billion as well, and it didn't have that going for it. So I think people miss that factor sometimes when they go into that stuff. They're like, oh, this is doing well because of this, and they don't notice that it's the branding that's making it do well, not necessarily what's being represented. Because I feel like all these modern movies that have been getting praised, and I'm not trying to get too much into race and politics here, but a lot of these modern like black films that have been praised by critics with black filmmakers that they keep perpetuating, like Judah and the Black Messiah, the Barry Jenkins, think it's him. He's doing the Underground Railroad right now, or like Steve McQueen's got that show with different storylines, or like Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. And we've seen this just the last 2 years. And they're like, wow, these are like huge, important films that everybody loves, and they're going to win all the Oscars, and they're acclaimed. And like, none of them are making any money. Like, if you actually look at, and you have to factor in COVID, but even before COVID, outside of like Jordan Peele's movies, it wasn't like it was this thing where black cinema had all these like breakout movies and all these directors. And I think the industry is really caught up in the representation factor, and they think that's like what's the mainstream right now. Like, and I'm only talking cinematically because obviously in the music industry and stuff like that there is a lot of diversity and it's very successful, but I feel like they're like, wow, people really want to see black movies by black filmmakers, or people really want to see different cultures represented in movies like this, and they're going to do really well. And I see it all the time, and I don't know if that's actually what audiences want to see and what they're going for. I don't know if that's actually true. The power of the MCU and their response to black audience is making a superhero movie that's accessible to that audience. I see a black bodybuilders at my gym wearing Wakanda Forever shirts. Yeah, I think it was MCU mixed with that. I think that movie was sold really well. Mexicans do not like Jordan Peele movies. That's funny. I mean, I think a lot of these like black films are really good. I'm just saying that they just seem to be talked about so much as if they're having a bigger impact on the industry than I think they are. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that they're bad or that it's a negative place for them or anything like that. That's why I'm bringing up the diversity point, because that's something that I've noticed so many of the film critics with this movie. If you look at the reviews, every review is like, it's wonderful to see these people on screen. It's a movie about immigrants wanting better lives for themselves and being dreamers. Like, it's all this kind of stuff. And that's what I'm saying again. I think if this had come out in 2011 when Miranda was going to be the lead and Kenny Ortega was going to direct it in 2011, I think it might have responded. People would have responded to it better. Where now it almost feels like In the Heights is like dated. You know, it does. It does feel kind of like irrelevant to where we are right now. Um, as a culture, I just don't think it's. And they cut a lot out. They cut out like three of my favorite songs, like Sunrise and stuff, and I don't know why. And they changed a lot of things from the original play, because I have watched most of the movie now on HBO Max, and I don't hate it or anything, but I am shocked to the praise of it, because I felt like it was like very over edited and like messy and almost a little bit like scattershot. It's very good looking movie, like the cinematography, the production design, the costume design, the choreography, but at the same time, I do feel like there was some rawness and emotional core to it, some edge to it that was lacking in this. Like when you go see the play, it's not this over stylized music video like it is in the movie. It's a weird cinematic translation, and I am shocked that critics are just heaping praise on it, and I wonder how much of that is because of the diversity as opposed to the merits of the film itself. Okay, so here we go, right here. As one rival marketing exec told me this weekend, Warner Brothers was everywhere within the Heights. Everywhere I turned on every network, there was an ad. And that's not a ding to the Burbank, California lot. It's what a filmmaker wants, especially on a diversity project such as In the Heights. Right there, with the fresh faced cast. They want to know that the studio truly has their best intentions and their backs. Warner Brothers supported In the Heights this weekend. Unfortunately, it was the audience who did not. As we mentioned yesterday, In the Heights underperformance after a lofty 20 million plus opening weekend projections boils down to its IP. It's not Miranda's Hamilton, which redefined the Broadway musical and became a sensation by taking an American founding father story, setting it to rap with diverse casting. Rather, it's a smaller musical beloved by the composer, lyricist, uh, multi hyphenated Core's fan base. That's a weird hyphenate. In this ideal box office marketplace, it would have been best for Warner Brothers to platform the movie off the Fall Film Festival, trigger word of mouth, much like Lionsgate did with La La Land. However, even in a pre-pandemic times, what's been hanging around the release calendar, which Warner's always had to stay clear of, is another Hispanic themed musical, and that's Amblin 20th Century Studios' Disney reboot of West Side Story from Steven Spielberg, which is scheduled for the theatrical release on December 10th. Now, did they? That is curious. Did they feel competition with West Side Story, Spielberg making that with the Hispanic community wanting to go see it? I mean, that's a more popular IP, but that's really funny to think about. Spielberg versus Miranda. How can I say it in no DuckTales? Oh, I missed your comment. They tried to claim that Parasite was SJW pandering because it won Picture, ignoring by that point that it was one of the highest grossing films in the world that year. Yeah, I know that people do that. I know that people get on that and they're like, oh, look, Parasite won this foreign film because it was social justice, even though it was a great movie. I understand that. I do see that too. Okay. So let's look at these excuses, right? Again, a fresh face cast isn't the reason why In the Heights didn't pull in crowds here. Now, how do you know it's not because it's a fresh face cast is the reason that it didn't do well? I don't understand that assumption, right? That it's because I mean, one of the biggest names is the lead guy who was in Hamilton, who's taking over from Miranda's role. Miranda's in it now as like the snow cone vendor. And then the guy who plays the one girl's father, he's what's his name? He's a very famous TV actor and he's been in a lot of movies. I think he was on like NYPD Blue and stuff like that. He's been around a long time. He's in it and it's obvious he got cast in that role. He's like the guy you cast. I think he was also on that show The Get Down. But there isn't any big stars in this movie. So immediately I love this excuse by them because their projections were off. I go, okay, it's not because nobody in this is famous that this didn't do well. How do you know that isn't true? Rather, the IP doesn't boast the renowned, hummable songs that Hamilton does. Any comparisons to The Greatest Showman don't work here. That movie had stars and was immediately found by mass moviegoers over the 2017 year-end holiday period, yielding a platinum-selling soundtrack. Again, let's not forget that the core audience for musicals is an older demographic. So here's another weird point. All the weeks before this movie came out, all you read in the media and headlines was this was going to get young people out to the movies. There was going to be this huge boost of like people in their 20s and 30s to go see this very modern musical that's representative, has modern dancing and choreography. And then all of a sudden, this article shifts to, well, the audience that skews to musicals is typically older, and they're not going to go to a movie during the pandemic. So I find that very curious. And it's weird because there's a lot of musicals coming out this year. There's Dear Evan Hansen, which Steven Chbosky's doing an adaptation of. There's West Side Story. There's this. There's like another. There's like two more I'm not even thinking of. TikTok Boom, which is directed by Lin-Manuel Miranda, starring Andrew Garfield, which was the guy who did Rent. I think it was what he did before Rents came out. Um, How am I doing? My neighborhood cicadas everywhere, and they're trying to kill me. I was attacked by them the other day, right? So females at 63% gave the movie an A plus. Post-check audiences gave it 4.5 stars. Though it's clear that fans and 40% of Hispanic fan base came out for In the Heights, how that translates into legs seems a little cloudy, given how the movie is also on HBO Max. Maybe a 5-day launch in August like Crazy Rich Asians would have done the trick. For In the Heights, Crazy Rich Asians in its first 3 days of Wednesday through Friday made $16 million with $5 million Wednesday. But once again, these comparisons, right? It feels like this is somebody trying to make excuses because they can't figure out the box office anymore. There's no definitive way to do an analysis. This is why I haven't been doing Box Office Addict, because like Godzilla versus Kong opens well and everyone's like, look, the box office is back, and then the movie's barely scratching to make 100 million. Everyone's like, oh, Quiet Place 2 did well. Everyone's going back to the movies. And then Peter Rabbit 2 and In the Heights come out and they don't do that well, or The Conjuring 3 opens to lesser numbers. Like there's no, I don't know if people are ever going to go back to the theater 100%, or at least for a long time. And I know everyone keeps saying like, oh, that's going to change, that's going to change. But is it going to change? Like how high is the interest of people to go to the movies? Um and that's where a lot of these factors come in. And In the Heights is a fascinating one in this whole, post-pandemic theatrical performance. Like this is a fascinating one where it's going to get Oscar nominations. People are trying to say, is word of mouth going to hold on to this movie? Is it going to open? Is it going to do better in this follow-up weekends? Or was this just a bust? Because we'll get into it soon how much money they spent on this fucking thing. They have a lot of money in this movie, and I don't see how they make it back. So let's just skip Peter Rabbit too, because who gives a fuck about that? That does not mean anything. All right. So, Warner Brothers says it's committed to a theatrical window for its movies in 2022. The fear was something like the box office underperformance of In the Heights, a potential awards darling, if you weird, geared at adults, is rather the studios take all movies like this in the future and relegates them to a streaming service. As long as the Academy Awards provides loopholes allowing streaming titles to compete, they did so even pre-pandemic. It won't be shocking if more studios with OTT services opt to skip a theatrical release with an awards contender so they can avoid the tarnish of the box office headlines. But this wasn't some small awards contender movie that they would just release on a streaming service. This movie cost $55 million. They thought this was going to be a blockbuster. Like, what are you talking about? You can't compare this to like Nomadland or Judah and the Black Messiah or something like that. Like what that, a film that you could release on a streaming service and it wouldn't affect you that much. We have to go through the history of this. They mentioned it in this article, right? That would be truly unfortunate, even with the lackluster weekend performance of In the Heights. I have to think is that Miranda is over the moon that In the Heights, a musical which he hatched in college in 1999, is playing on the big screen this summer. Yeah, he's excited. Like, it's always coming back to sucking this guy's dick. Why here are starving despite any glowing headlines the box office has provided in recent weeks, would rather have In the Heights in theaters making whatever money they can after a 31-day run on HBO Max. In the Heights will be exclusively in theaters. Here's the issue with this. Like, don't you think most people are going to watch it on HBO Max and not go to the theater? So they talk about the social media reach, right? So 115.6 million across YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. By comparison, La La Land, which platformed out for nominations, was only at 48.9%. So like they'll have guys like Miranda on Jimmy Fallon. He'll be in all these interviews. They'll talk to the cast. They'll show you how popular this is on YouTube and Facebook and social media, and the tracking is so big. And then the movie only makes $11 million. Makes you question, right? So hold on. There's a longer part about this that's really interesting. Okay, so I like this part of the article where they said one of the first estimates of the film was going to be like in the 10 to mid-teens, and then everyone started estimating 20 million plus, as that might have been an account of the estimated $20 million Warner's added to their PR towards the end of their marketing blitz for the musical. So here's the thing. They spent $55 million on this movie. And then recently, they added another $20 million to the marketing campaign. So right there is 75 million. This doesn't include the marketing that they did pre-pandemic. So let's just round off and say there's over $100 million. Okay, so don't forget this. Warner's closed a $50 million deal for the movie rights after a bidding war took place for the IP around town. This included studio marketing departments pitching the filmmakers and dressing their backups like scenes from the Tony-winning Broadway show in an effort to show what they could do within the Heights. The musical's features rights were extracted ahead of the Weinstein Company's bankruptcy in May 2018. So here's the thing. They were going to make this with Harvey Weinstein. He had this deal lined up. And then after the Me Too, the allegations and everything, they sold the project. So Universal almost made this at $37 million in 2011 with Miranda as the lead role and Kenny Ortega as the director. It would have helped a bit if Miranda did have a lead role in the movie now versus supporting. His face is absent on the main ensemble one sheet, though his character did receive a standalone poster. Okay, so let's go down. Let's go down. Yeah, Oprah. Like Oprah's promoting it, right? Oprah's dancing, saying, "Go see this movie." All of this ended up being irrelevant. That has no impact. So this is where it's important. It's not just that Hollywood and the box office is diminished, but these media outlets, like these television networks and these celebrities and these people thinking they can promote things, it has less impact now. They're all going to jump on In the Heights and be like, this is going to be a big thing. And they try to promote it as much as they can. And they all love Miranda. And then the movie still can't open. And you could say, oh, it's because of COVID. But then what about A Quiet Place 2 opening to 47 million? So it's clearly not just because of COVID, right? Odd is an actor who voices Pacino, somewhat of a big actor in Mexico. I've heard that Steve McQueen wants to do a musical. Apparently everyone wants to do a musical. Yeah, Space Jam 2. This is a curious one. I think Space Jam 2 is also going to bomb. I don't know. I don't think that movie would have bombed I mean, that's the thing. We don't know. I mean, at least where I'm at, the pandemic's pretty much like over. We're not wearing masks anymore. Everything's opened up again. I don't know if that's everywhere in the country, but here it's like it feels like it's pretty much over at the time being. Like they just like lifted all restrictions. Okay, so they did support In the Heights. Okay, so we had factored in. So they paid $50 million for this movie. Then they spent $55 million to make it. Okay, so then they spent the $20 million on the marketing and then other. So they have at least $150 million in this movie, like without question. So even if it does have good word of mouth, let's say it has good word of mouth and it's able to make it to like 80 million. And then internationally, let's say it makes like a little bit. Let's say it makes like $130 million worldwide, or maybe even 150. It doesn't break even. They have $150 million in this movie. I mean, that means they expected this when they bought this, when everybody was bidding for In the Heights. This is because everybody thought Miranda was going to be this big deal, especially post Hamilton. So I think they thought this was going to make $300, $400 million. I mean, of course they did. Why would they put this much money into it? So then with the HBO Max release simultaneously, which who knows, it might be performing well. And I don't know if HBO Max subscribers have gone up since they've been releasing these movies during the pandemic. But it's an interesting question why this movie underperforms so much. Is it because of the IP? Is it because of the HBO Max release? But even if you take away the HBO Max release, I still don't think this would have opened to like $25 million. I still think it probably would have been what? Maybe 18 million, maybe. And then you have to argue, would this have done that well in a pre-COVID universe where the reviews and the hype? Because how much do people even care about film reviews right now? And how much are people caring about promotion in the way that they used to pre-pandemic? That's what I'm saying. There's this long-lasting impact of COVID. And I think A Quiet Place Part 2 didn't suffer from it as much just because people are really attached to that first movie and wanted to go see the second one. So, yeah, I don't see how they make any profit off this movie with $150 million. Oh, it is weird going to a store. The first time I went into a store without the mask on, I felt naked. Anytime going to work, going anywhere without the mask on, I feel like I got my dick out, you know? And now the cicadas are out. I don't know what's going on. It's like weird in a different way. It's not weird in the way it was the last like year. It's weird in like a trying to get back to feeling some sense of normalcy again and trying to like figure out what the world is. Now the weird thing though is the international box office hasn't been affected as much, right? So like some countries it's like where is it? Let's see if they have the list here. There's this movie Hi Mom made $822 million dollars, this Chinese film. That's insane. $822 million dollars. It's this huge fucking hit. You know, and then Detective Chinatown 3, $686 million dollars. And then we have Godzilla vs. Kong, which made $342 million internationally. And then Fast and the Furious 9 is currently at about 270 million. So I don't think we'll really get a good sense of where the box office is going until Fast and Furious 9 comes out. I think if F9 comes out and opens well, and by open well I mean like 55, 65 million, we'll be like, okay, maybe we're kind of making a slow transition back. But if it opens to like 30 million, you really have to start to consider like what's going on here. And you know, are the studios just going to have to bite the bullet? No, that's how much. No, 800. No, it's not in yen. It's not in yen, sir. They don't do that on Box Office Mojo. I still wear a mask when I go out here in Egypt because people decided to stop following the rules and COVID rates went up. Yeah, Demon Slayer single-handedly saved the box office. Hispanics just don't move the needle with mainstream American pop culture like black people do. Don't know if you will mention that. That's interesting. That's the thing. I can't speak for like Hispanic culture. I don't, I'm not. I don't know how they feel about this stuff. Yeah, yeah, it's China. I mean, Demon Slayer made 450 million in Japan, or like 400 something million in Japan. I feel like Fast and Furious 9 is going to do well. Universal can't bring it out for post COVID 17 days later, or a pay-per-view on demand, because their contract says it has to make under 50 million for them to do that. I love how good shit finds a way to get around. I need to check out Demon Slayer. And then we have, what is it, Raya? Raya and the Last Dragon, which a lot of people attacked as an SJW movie. I never watched it, so I don't really know. I mean, the only two films that have really broke out during this is In the Height. I mean, is A Quiet Place Part 2 and Godzilla vs. Kong, I think are going to make a profit. Everything else, um, we're kind of in a weird place, right? I can speak for Hispanic stories like that are awful. Can we just talk briefly about the comeback of Guy Ritchie? So, like, Wrath of Man, this movie opens to 8 million, only makes 25 mil domestic, but 126 million worldwide. Him reuniting with Jason Statham, crime movie. No doubt going to make a profit, right? And then he made the movie, what is it, The Gentleman or The Gentleman? Yeah, The Gentleman. He made that in 2019, $22 million budget, $115 million worldwide. It got like a 7.8 on IMDb. So there's two movies there that have made over 100 million worldwide. I'm sure Wrath of Man didn't have a big budget either. Now, I know he did Aladdin, and that made $1 billion, so we have to count that. But really think about this with Guy Ritchie, man. Like, the man from Uncle, he did that King Arthur movie. He really hadn't had something do super well post Sherlock Holmes. And it kind of looked like he was on his way out. And then he gets Aladdin. And of course, that does well. But he's had these two movies in a row now, like, The Gentleman and Wrath of Man that both made 100 million. So I just want to point that out, that there's been this low key Guy Ritchie comeback story where he's making like crime films doing really well, that like he used to do back when he did Snatch and Lock and Stock. And I don't hear anybody talking about it. But it really should be like brought up that like Guy Ritchie's kind of like back in the zone, and he's like, I'd say an A-list director right now, just because of having those, like, he's, when you have three successes in a row and one of those films made $1 billion, I mean, the guy's in a really good spot right now. So Guy Ritchie, put put some stock on him if you want to, like, I don't know, do your box office estimates or something. He's low key made a comeback. That's the thing. What the fuck? Like Cruella, like, what do we even say about that? Was that going to be a big hit? Was that going to make $50 million in opening weekend? I don't know. You know, was The Conjuring Part 3 going to open to like 45, 50 million? I don't know. People don't seem to like this one as much as the other two as well. Was there any point that In the Heights was going to be like this 35, 40 million dollar opening? I don't really think there was. That's what I'm trying to get at. I don't think there was even a point pre-COVID. I don't think In the Heights was ever going to be this giant hit movie that they thought it was. I think that buying it for 50 million, how much money they put into it, I think it was all miscalculated from the beginning. Um, the only Mexican movie stars I know of are masked wrestlers like El Santo and Blue Team. That's funny. Huh, I didn't know. In Turkey, they view our wrestling movies like artsy movies. Interesting. There's not too much to cover outside of that. It's just like these comments of people arguing on here. I feel like it's gonna be a thing where critics love this movie and the media is really gonna push it, and these outlets, and then I don't know how audiences actually feel about In the Heights. I don't know if it's gonna have that same reception. Very curious. Um, yeah, I'm looking forward to Dune. I hope Dune's good. It could suck, but I didn't like the trailer very much. I could say that the trailer disappointed me, but I no, I did not love Loki. Yes, I've seen My Hero Academia. I fell asleep during Crazy Rich Asians. Not because I thought it was like bad. I just fell asleep halfway in the theater because I had been working, like, I worked a double that day, and I went to go see it and just passed out in like this nice recliner seat. It is what it is. From what I saw, though, there was crazy rich Asians in the movie, so it was marketed correctly. I'm kind of looking forward to Last Night in Soho, but I was really disappointed in Baby Driver, so I'm kind of like skeptical of Edgar Wright at the moment. Even though he's like, this is my Polanski, or what's the other one? Uh, Don't Look Now. He says it's going to be like that. I hope it's good. Yeah, I don't usually fall asleep in a movie theater. It's very rare, and it's not a reflection of the movie being bad. Have you done your duty and watched through Attack on Titan? Yes, I've seen Attack on Titan. This is becoming an anime channel. Please, weeaboo. For some reason my vape's been hitting really hot and it's burning my throat, and it's really fucking annoying. All the media I saw uses the villain reimagined as an anti-hero protagonist. The anime Moriarty, the Patriot, is the only good one. I should just be an anime channel. They seem to be very successful. I could just sit around all day and watch anime, then masturbate to hentai, and then make meme jokes and anime jokes on here. Have a gigantic fan base of like white dudes obsessed with anime that follow my channel, and then maybe like 3 or 4 hot girls that can stalk me on social media. So it does seem like there's more benefits than negatives. I mean, how many girls are in the chat right now? But if this was an anime channel, we might get one. And it's worth doing it for that reason. I actually had a plan to make a video today. Yes, I did watch Invincible. I watched the entire first season. I'd like to talk about it at some point. I did have a video plan today that I wrote a script for. Um, and I would like to do that video, but it would take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of editing. And I thought, you know what? I haven't done a Box Office Addict live stream since COVID. And I think Tenet is the one I did. And then all the other Box Office Addicts have been this like going back and looking thing. So I thought, okay, I'll do one like the classic one. I'll do a little live stream and talk about this with you guys just for the fun of it. Um, yeah, God, did you see the pictures of Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones? It's insane how fucking old he looks. And I think about the Oscar. I mean, it's like, guys, Harrison Ford is too old. You can't have him in the fucking fedora and jacket going around. I mean, isn't he like 80? The guy's like legitimately like 80 years old, right? Or like 70. I mean, what the fuck? Why would he still be going out on adventures? I loved Invincible. How come you did not read my super chats on the last Evangelion movie from earlier this year? I feel like Ray deserved a better ending. I don't know. I must have missed them. I'm sorry. Um, I don't know why I didn't read them. I don't remember, to be honest with you, man. I'm not trying to be a jerk. I just don't remember you asking those questions. I agree, but you know, I really didn't like that movie. Yeah, like, well, if you want, I don't know. I feel like the first season of The Boys is better than Invincible, but I think Invincible as a show has potential to be better than The Boys because The Boys season 2 sucked. I think Invincible has way more potential of being good over like 5 seasons just because they're already sticking much closer to the comic. Really? Is that what it is? They're setting Indiana Jones 5 in the 60s and it's about racial issues? Don't lie to me. Well, that's the thing. Like Indiana Jones being 80, why would he be going out on adventure? He would be like he'd be retired or he'd be a professor. I don't know why they don't have the character retired or teaching, and then he's just like the mentor giving advice to some younger character on an adventure. Does anybody really want to see like 80-year-old Harrison Ford out there, like with a whip fighting guys and stuff like that? It was hard to buy when they made Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, but it was still kind of like, okay, he still looks pretty good in the suit. He doesn't look too old. I mean, the movie wasn't good, but it wasn't like because Harrison Ford looked terrible. He was still kind of okay being Indiana Jones, but he looks, I mean, it looks terrible now. I mean, it's embarrassing. He wants some sweet African American booty. One can only hope. My friend enjoys The Boys because it's less faithful to the comic. He's not a big gear. I like the things they changed in The Boys the first season actually quite a bit. Season 2, no. Bring back Mutt Williams. Yeah, where's Mutt? Is Indiana just not gonna have his kid around? Crazy ass current Shia as Mutt. I think they did miss an opportunity. Yeah, I don't know what they're thinking with like I don't know why you don't either just do a reboot if you want to do it because I have no problem. James Mangold's a good director. He could make a solid Indiana Jones film, but at this point, yeah, you can't he can't be Harrison Ford, can't be Indiana Jones doing the action. Like I can't believe they have him in the fucking costume. When I saw those pictures, it just blew my fucking mind. I think Shia stopped doing He Will Not Divide Us stuff like years ago. I don't think He Will Not Divide Us is that even a thing anymore? Isn't Shia trying to like bring back his movie career? Isn't that what he's doing? Like Honey Boy and all that crap? Peanut Butter Falcon? I don't I don't know. Have Mutt be on to LSD. These are the craziness. As flawed as any 4 is, the ending where Indiana Jones takes the hat from Mutt hits the sweet spot. I know, everybody wants Chris Pratt. I mean, when you see the Jurassic World movies, you're like, why isn't Chris Pratt Indiana Jones? Or at least a new character who takes on the mantle of Indiana Jones. Nobody ever wants to bring this up. The first movie wasn't called Indiana Jones. It was called Raiders of the Lost Ark. Then the franchise became Indiana Jones, right? It's sort of like Star Wars was Star Wars, and then it became, oh, it's Star Wars A New Hope. So, like, Why can't you just make a new Indiana Jones film that takes place in the universe where Dr. Jones existed, but there's no Indiana Jones? Like the lead character's Chris Pratt could be like Jack something, and he's basically the Indiana Jones character, and it's called, something. It's got a name like, Raiders of the Lost Ark did. It isn't like a franchise name. It's just part of the it's just an Indiana Jones movie that takes place in the universe. But because you called Indiana Jones, it has to have Harrison Ford in it. So he has to play Indiana Jones until he's like 150 years old. So it's what's kept that franchise from continuing organically like the way it should have. Because really it should just end with Indy in the trilogy, and then he should be at most in a small supporting role as like an older man, and he can send someone else out on an adventure for him. Why can't he get Chris Pratt to go on an adventure for him to get something? Like, yeah, it should be like the James Bond franchise. Instead, it's always like Harrison Ford's the only one who could play Indiana Jones. It's stupid. It doesn't work with an old guy. You don't want to see an old guy go on some action adventure trip. It's just silly. Well, I think there's something about how martial arts movies and those kind of something with Eastern cinema that gets away more with the older action star than an American film. Something about it works just because of like how they treat the elderly in those places, I feel, and their art, where with the way we see old people is a lot more embarrassing in the United States. I know I wrote the best script ever for Indiana Jones 5. I wrote an Academy Award winning screenplay with my friend one night, and I'm very upset about it because it's a good version of The Force Awakens, and it's never going to get made now, and I just have to accept that. I had Killian Murphy in it as a bad guy. Think about that, guys. Killian Murphy is a bad guy in an Indiana Jones movie. It would have been fucking fantastic. Oh yeah, Sean Connery. But like Sean Connery in The Rock, that was badass. That was a sexy old man. Yeah, what happened to the 10-10 movies? I remember Peter Jackson, Spielberg were like, we're definitely making this trilogy. And Jackson's doing the second movie. It's like, well, that never happened. Oh yeah, that dude, you have my whole thing. Emma Stone was going to be in it. John Hamm was going to be uh a Jew who was secretly like undercover pretending to be an American, but he was from Israel. It was all about the Middle Eastern crisis. Emma Stone was in it as the female. Chris Pratt was in it as a Vietnam vet who was working for Indiana Jones to track down stuff at the Pentagon. Um, and Cillian Murphy was in it as an assassin character that was going to have like scuffles with Chris Pratt. And it was all like a mentor movie. Like Indiana Jones never has an action scene. He's just working at the university, and Chris Pratt like just calls him on payphones and stuff and talks to him about, what should I do next? Because Chris Pratt's character doesn't know anything about archaeology and history, so he has to call Indiana Jones. So it would just be scenes with like Indiana Jones on the phone, like, you don't know what that is? And Chris Pratt's like, no, I don't. And then it's for an intrigue. It was a little bit, it's kind of a spy thriller more than like an action adventure movie. And like the other ones, it's more of like, as Blood Money said, it was an apology for Munich, which I love. And the whole thing was going to end with this whole like big fight at the Pentagon, and Cillian Murphy trying to kill Indiana Jones, old Indiana Jones, and Chris Pratt's character having a fight with John Hamm, who just goes full like over the top villain at the end. Uh and then basically the movie would end with Indiana Jones, Harrison Ford's character, like passing the torch on to Chris Pratt's character, who's this Vietnam vet who's had to deal with being spit on and hated on by protesters coming back from the war, and he's sort of traumatized by it and lacks an identity. But then he gets an identity through this Indiana Jones adventure, and at the end, he like gets the hat and everything. Like, it would end with them at, like, a coffee shop or something like that, or somewhere in Europe, and he hands him the hat, you know? And then we go into, like, the next adventure would be Chris Pratt as the new Indiana Jones, even though he probably wouldn't have the name, but it would be his he would now be the Indiana Jones character for the franchise. And the whole thing was really fun. It was like, yeah, it was foreign intrigue and, like, we thought of it as like a '70s spy thriller, like a post-Vietnam '70s spy thriller, in the vein of like, you know, 3 Days of the Condor or something like that. Like one of those, Alan J. Pakula movies from the '70s. And I think that would've been really cool. Yeah, what the fuck wasn't Cillian Murphy like a villain in like 100 movies? He's just so good in everything. What if there was a movie made about how Max Landis steals your guy's script to revive his career and to get back on a road trip? I said this when the Indiana Jones 5, because we spent like 6 hours fleshing it out. I was like, I don't care. I was like, if somebody makes this and steals it from me, I don't care. I just want to see this movie. Like the night we were talking about it and we were pitching it, because I don't remember everything we did. It sounded like it sounded like Raiders of the Lost Ark. Like we were excited. Like by the end, I was like, we're Spielberg and Lucas right now. Because we just like fleshed like when we looked at like when we fleshed it out. And I'm not trying to stroke our egos here. It was just when we kind of came to that idea of like, no, it's a movie about another guy. It's about this Vietnam vet. Or Korea, whatever you want to pick, but it's about this guy coming out of the military, going through an identity crisis in a country that's changing, and he is ignorant to history and the importance of history, and he learns to enjoy it and respect it and appreciate why you need to like keep these things in museums, or why you need to go find these items through his relationship with the Indiana Jones, who is more of a stubborn older professor type character to the more action savvy Chris Pratt character. And it's got so much to do with like your identity in a to your country. So John Hamm is hiding his identity. He's pretending to be this American, but really he's a spy. Uh, we even had this idea where like he like lifts his shirt up and he's got like scars and stuff like that from his military past. I mean, he like lifts his like sleeve up of his shirt, but then Chris Pratt's character doesn't find his identity as an American anymore. He doesn't know what to believe anymore. But then he finds his identity through appreciating history, and thus realizing that like he is the keeper of the history of the fire, and he must continue these journeys on and stuff like that. That Indiana Jones, or the idea of Indiana Jones, isn't a character, it's like a philosophy that can live on. And him getting the hat and everything at the end would have been like, now he has an identity, he has a purpose again, and he actually cares about this stuff. And then you could have just had great sequels where he's like trying to read books and learn stuff. He's not the Indiana Jones character where he's like an expert on this stuff. He has to learn. He's just a guy, you know? He's just like a normal dude who has military training so he can fight and shoot a gun. But he's like ignorant, sort of like we are, and as he learns, we learn. And it's about finding your identity again and finding your like relationship to your country and how you represent your country and stuff like that. And when the villain of the story, he feels betrayed, and he can't deal with his identity crisis, but the Chris Pratt character comes to like a catharsis at the end. You know, that was the whole idea with it. It was a lot about like it got into some weird. It was very political. It like I would say it was a mix of Munich with Raiders of the Lost Ark, but it was very, very political. It sounds like a script for Ghostbusters was supposed to be the original crew training a new generation that included some guys and ladies, but we got yeah, exactly. It's funny because I used to always say Paul Rudd should have been in like, that Ghostbusters reboot as like the new Peter Venkman type character with him being groomed, and now he's in the new Ghostbusters movie. And Jason Reitman does, and I was like, yeah, this makes more sense organically to have like Paul Rudd's a perfect person to be in a Ghostbusters movie. When I read your stream title In the Heights, I was expecting a whole movie upload. Shame on you. I think it depends on the kind of the politics that you're doing. I think people wouldn't like a message movie, but do I think people would like a political thriller, like a socio-political thriller with Indiana Jones, like a spy movie, fuck yeah. Because that was the thing about the Indiana Jones movies, right? They were like serials, or they were reflecting different eras of movies. So like they were homages to movies that Spielberg and Lucas grew up with, these serials, and they were making them like that. So this is what the new Indiana Jones movie would be. It would be a reimagining or a reskin of like a 70s political thriller. It would do what the old movies did, but it would be different because it would be set in a different decade. That was sort of the idea. Oh yeah, Mark Rylance would definitely be a villain. No question. Well, it just depends, like the movies that we were really pulling from, like the like the thrillers that we were pulling from were like ones that we really like from the 70s. And I think the way that Spielberg and Lucas, when they were kids, what they grew up watching and they wanted to make, like, I think you have to update it. You have to like jump it up about like 30 years for it to make sense to a newer generation who might be nostalgic about the 70s or the 80s even, but I would say the 70s would be a good place to start. Did Christoph Waltz really live up to his potential? Can we just talk about that for a second? And Christoph Waltz won like 2 Oscars, and he was like this big deal. Now it's like, where's Christoph Waltz? Just kind of wonder with his career. Maybe he got like too good of characters too quickly, and he couldn't live up to it. Oh yeah, fuck Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I don't know. What do you guys think? What do you guys think's gonna happen to the box office, man? Like, are we back? How long have we been going? An hour? Really curious. Because I kind of did this abruptly, so that's probably why you didn't get a notification, because there wasn't like a. I just kind of decided to do this when I saw this movie wasn't doing well, as opposed to the video I was planning on doing today, which was scripted and was going to need a lot more work. I don't really know what we're talking about. We were talking about Indiana Jones 5 and how Harrison Ford looks old as fuck. Discord. What Marvel movie do you think will do the worst this year? What all ones are coming out this year? Like a movie? I'm I don't know, Eternals? Probably. I definitely think the TV shows have been disappointing, even though people seem to say WandaVision's great, but I would love if he became Captain Falcon. I would love that so much if he was Captain fucking Falcon. Oh yeah, Shang-Chi. Yeah, I forgot about that. Good call. Fuck, yeah, they got like 3 fucking movies coming out, don't they? Then all the shows. All the shows have been disappointing. Yeah, it's cool that Michael Fassbender's in a David Fincher movie. That's real. It's actually really fucking cool. Yeah, I mean, I could see Black Widow just doing better because the character's so famous and Scarlett Johansson's such a big star. I mean, if any of them has potential to really break out, it has to be Black Widow, right? Just because of, I mean, she's one of the main characters in all of the Avengers movies, and I mean, she's not just like some B tier character. Where, the other two, they're a bit more of a risk. You know, we don't really know how that's going to go. I announced it earlier this week. I decided Endgame fucking sucks. I put the nail in the coffin. I don't know if it's comparable to Black Widow to Solo because Solo was played by a different actor and a prequel didn't really ask for. I feel like people would be interested in a prequel to the Black Widow character. And it's the same actor playing it as opposed to them recasting the part. So I don't think that comparison's fair. If my girlfriend ate all of my what? What would you do if your girlfriend ate all your? Why don't we have more animated action movies like Kung Fu Panda and anime movies? I don't know. It would be cool if we had more animated action films, for sure. Yeah, if they like torture her and it's like super sexual, I'm totally down for seeing Black Widow several times. If she ate all my food, I don't know, I'd probably get more food. Warrior, the show, I don't think I've seen it. It's okay. I just didn't know what you meant when you said if she ate all your, and I was like, is there something specific you're referring to? American Eagle. Captain Falcon and the American Eagle. I was confused with Falcon and the Winter Soldier because I felt like when Endgame ends and he hands him the shield, it was like he's Captain America now. I thought that's what the movie was saying. And then in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, he's not Captain America. And then it's all about him becoming Captain America. I'm a fan of Scarlett Johansson BDSM cinematically, yes. I'm a fan of her in anything like that. Um, it's not like I want to see that with Amy Schumer. Technically, the government owns his shield. Didn't Tony make the shield, though? Does Tony not own the shield? Yeah, I like pickles. How do you own a shield? We own the shield? Not disagreeing with you there, but that's my view on how they could retcon the ending in Endgame. Yeah, who owns the fucking shield? Hey, we want that shield. Well, why? If he gave it to Falcon, then like fuck it. That's who it went. Like what? I'm so confused about this whole thing. They're like, let's do a whole show with these guys. Like, oh, is this going to be a continuation of like, Civil War and Winter Soldier? God, the editing on that show is really terrible too. Like the editing fights, is very odd. The Native Americans asked how you can own the land, and well, the Disney Plus Marvel shows had so much potential. I want to be excited for Loki, but yeah, they did have potential. I was really excited about them doing shows. The government thing came from Civil War when they held his shield from Steve. Yeah, but isn't that over? Wasn't that over by the Thanos thing? Like, isn't that pretty much done by the time we get around to Endgame? And the world, it's the 5 year that the finger snap and all that, and Cap's like still around. Isn't that stuff all settled? I thought that shit was like done. Seemed like all that government stuff got overshadowed really quick as soon as the Infinity Stone Thanos stuff started happening. Yeah, what's gonna happen with Black Panther 2 with no T'Challa? That's interesting. Yeah, what happened to the Accords? I don't know. That whole like they didn't follow up on Civil War's ending. What happened? We go into Infinity War and it's like, okay, Cap's on the run, and then by the time Endgame comes out, it's like, okay, did they just say fuck it to all that stuff because half the population got snapped? Yes, they need to replace all of them with women. It needs to be a Black Panther female, Ironheart, female Thor. Um, it needs to be all female characters. We only need trans or female characters in the lead roles. I don't know. I think I don't know what they're gonna do with T'Challa. Are they just gonna kill him off camera? Did they film something with Chadwick Boseman that we don't know about where he's like dying? Like, if that movie starts with a fucking funeral, that's gonna be really weird. Like, hey, he's dead. He just died after Endgame. He's just gone. That's the question. Do you recast Black Panther? Because they didn't seem to have a problem with recasting Terrence Howard or Edward Norton, but I wonder if they're going to feel that same way about casting Chadwick Boseman. That's my question. I wonder if they'll feel comfortable with that. Because yeah, logically recasting makes the most sense. Just pretend that it's the same character with a different actor. It gets somebody that looks close enough to him that it's not too jarring. That's the only thing you can really do. But they regret not casting Michael B. Jordan in that role now, huh? They'll probably have T'Challa still be alive off screen. I don't know if people want him recast. I think they're in a precarious situation. It's a thorny issue. Yeah, no, the 5-year time jump's terrible. I agree. Big mistake to jump 5 years ahead after Infinity War. 6 months, I think, would have been fine. But to be like 5 years, it's like, what the fuck? It just totally killed the entire like MCU like timeline. Because there's no way things would ever go back to normal. It was like COVID. It was like they went through their own COVID. In the Heights, bombed at the box office today. In the Heights, represent Latinos, but not the gays. Time travel in anything anymore just kind of irks me. I've been rewatching Lost, and I really love how they do time travel with the character Desmond, where he's just jumping back and forth between different times in his life, like, but he has to find like a constant to be able to not like have his brain go to mush. It's sort of like the Days of Future Past time travel, where you're like existing in times simultaneously, and you're like connected by like some mind thing instead of like you go back in time and then come back to the present. Um, so I really like how Lost does it. Season 5 they do really cool like that. No, I've never been in a hot air balloon. I'd like to. But every other way I've seen time travel done, I don't think it works as well in recent movies. I like it in like 80s movies. But I like the idea of the time travel, you just wake up and you're in like your body at 23, and then you walk out the door and you're in your body at 30, and you're kind of just jumping around like that. I think that's cool. You're really obsessed with Daniel Day-Lewis as Sherlock Holmes for some reason. It's not gonna happen. I like the jumping around time thing. I think that makes sense to me. Like, you're just living in a bunch of parallel realities through time. You're not going back in time or forward in time. You just have some connection to all these different strands of time, and you can just exist in them all at the same time. I think that's like trippy and fun. It also makes for really great editing. You can do these really cool things where like you cut to the one part and see how it affects the future or another timeline at the same time. I think it's a really good trick. It works visually so well. Like, yeah, Days of Future Past and Lost both benefit from that greatly. Just it creates this tension, being able to cut back and forth between two timelines where a character's connected to both of them. It just works really well cinematically. Um, where if you do a time travel story where you go like back in time, I think it's best to keep it like small and just keep the time like in Endgame when Tony goes back and meets his father and they go back to what I think it's the 70s, that should just be like the whole movie. It should be something like that kind of. Like they go to one place and it's all just like a period piece about that era and all that stuff. That kind of thing. That seems to work. Why didn't the boys season 2 have Starlight split between helping the boys in the 7 and have episode 3 be the finale? I don't know. I don't know what happened with the boys season 2. I feel like Endgame was probably just rushed. Yeah, Stark meeting his dad would be a really fun like Star Trek kind of Twilight Zone movie episode. But it's just like one part of this movie with so much other shit in it. The movie's too episodic for its own good. I'm hyped for anything David Lynch at this point. David Lynch could like do a show where he sits on a toilet and like just reads the newspaper and I would watch it religiously. Today in the news as I take a shit. What's going on with Israel and Palestine? I just farted. I like the characters on Mad Men. I met them once. I called him Don. I was told his name is John Hamm, but I still called him Don Draper. We had coffee and smoked a cigarette. That man is very handsome. Hi, Freddie. Stephen Strange is just playing the long con. God, I like pulled my back yesterday. I hate when that fucking happens. It just happens like randomly sometimes because I have a bad back. Like if I lean down the wrong way or I bend wrong or something, and then I just feel it, I'm like, oh no. And then it's like a week where like your lower back is sore and hurts until it feels better again. It fucking sucks. I opened the fridge yesterday and I kind of slipped and I felt it and I go, crap, there it is. And now I'm gonna have back pain for a week. Stark had to die. Oh fuck! God damn it! It's kind of funny how Ant-Man 2 ended up being more integral to Endgame than Captain Marvel was, in spite of the credits tease in Infinity War. Stephen Strange was like, "Yes, this outcome had to be when you die, Tony, and fuck you." Yeah, that he died. Berserk. I guess Berserk's never gonna have an ending, huh? Makes me not feel too bad that I stopped reading it like a while ago. I mean, I've read most of Berserk. I'd say I've read a good like 75% of it, but I stopped reading a while ago because I'm like, oh, this is still going. It's gonna, probably be another like 10 years, I feels like to me before this is over. And it's like, oh, now he's dead. Um, there we go. Really upsetting. Unless somebody else like comes up like writes an ending, I don't know. Although him not doing the artwork anymore kind of really affects it. Although at some point Berserk has been going so long, I don't even know if I want an ending. It's like, okay, this is so like that's what I get to the point I'd read so much. I'm like, oh my god, this is the longest thing ever. No, I never did dress up like Captain Planet, but I should consider that. I'm sure somebody will finish Berserk. They'll probably do something. It wouldn't shock me if they take some notes he had or something and they just kind of like come up. I mean, hopefully he had like an ending outline or something that people can go off of. Oh, it seems like we're never getting the ending to Game of Thrones either in the books. I can't think of any great Western comics at the moment. You mean Western like here or Western like cowboys with guns? That's the key. Kenshiro from Fist of the North Star is the best anime character of all time. That's my answer. I'm sticking to it. He meant us. He meant US. Okay, I didn't know. Yeah, because when you say a Western comic, well, yeah, but how much of the? I mean, America is kind of like when it comes to comics, they produce the most comic books. It's like when you say Western cinema, that means mostly American Hollywood movies. Yeah, Transformers '86 kicks ass. Greatest acid movie of its time. Watch that and Akira on acid back to back. You got a good week with, you got like a good like 12-hour trip there. You've got the touch. You've got the power. I don't know. It depends on what you're reading, man. I mean, there's a lot of shitty manga too. It's not all. I mean, I think there's more variety of good stuff in manga right now than there is in comics. Because this isn't like a golden era of American comics, but there's always good indie comics in America coming out that you can find, or there's always like a good run going on in of some writer that you're a fan of. I mean, it just depends on kind of what your interests are. Manga goes into more genres like you can read a high school romance story in manga if you're really into that. Um, there's just these different genres that aren't really in American comics as much. So it kind of depends on like what genres you're into and how you like stories. But if you're just a fan of comics, I think you can read comics from anywhere. I mean, there's a lot of comics I like from France. There's a lot of I mean, it depends on like what, if you just like the storytelling medium of a comic book, you can find all sorts of comic books that you like from all over the world. I don't think it's like manga versus American comics or anything, especially like American superhero comics versus manga. I think that's a limited way to, like a lot of time now when I read comics, I read it like I've been reading American Splendor a lot lately. Um, the Harvey Pekar book. I've been Love and Rockets. I've been reading a lot of that lately. And I've read it, but I've been going back and reading them, and they're nothing like what you would think American comics are like, and they're not really like manga either. They feel more like indie movies or something like that, or like an HBO show or something like that. Box Office Poison. That's the stuff I enjoy reading most of the time now because I find it relaxing and I really like the writing. Besides, I think the Koreans are taking over. I think the Japanese need to watch out if the anime and video games. I feel like we're in this like K-pop Korean cinema revolution. I feel like Korean culture is like the mainstream. I feel like Korea's really taken over. I feel like we're gonna have all these Korean actors and bands, and I feel the influence. I feel it happening in the world. The world is more than USA, Japan, and some of Europe. Well, yes, Captain Obvious. I don't but culturally, like as far as online goes, I mean, yeah, like most people seem to care about American media, Europe, and anime. Like if you go on YouTube, that seems to be like 90% of the content is related to like stuff from those places or like I mean, yeah, China seems to be doing well, but I don't know, like, are people like Hi Mom did well in China. Is anyone watching it anywhere else? Or is anyone watching television shows from China where like games from Japan or movies from Japan seem to be popular like all over the world right now? Especially the United States seems to have this big connection with Japan and culture. And I don't think it's there with China. I mean, I don't, people aren't like, hey, did you see that Chinese movie or watch that Chinese show or do you know that band from China? I can't think of anything that's like huge right now that's from China. In other place, not saying it's not big in China. Don't get me wrong. Some Chinese series are airing in Mexico. That's where it starts. I've been watching Resident Evil game lore on YouTube and I love One Piece. A Stephen Chow Ghostbusters movie? That sounds amazing. Why isn't that a thing? Yeah, I mean, I'm just talking about what's relevant to being American. I don't really give a fuck about other places and what they're into. I mean, why would I? Am I supposed to know what's going on in every like continent in the world, in every country? I don't, it just that's not reality. I don't like I don't know what's popular right now in the Netherlands or I don't know what's I don't know what's going on in New Zealand or something. It doesn't matter to me. I'm just thinking what's like culturally relevant right now where I live and what I see people being exposed to and stuff. That's because that's what I'm exposed to. It's like impossible. You care about every single place in the world and what's going on and you understand what's going on in every place in the world. That just doesn't make any sense. That's impossible. It's literally not possible. You could not know what's going on everywhere in the world and be culturally understanding of it or get it. You would have to understand the culture, you'd have to understand the language of the culture and the history of every culture in every place in the world and have access to everything from those places. That's like, yeah, that's not possible. I mean, that's cool. You like Spain, bro. Are you yeah, are you obsessed with like I don't know, do you care about Italy? I'm just saying it's just like just because you have like a fetish or an interest in something, I mean that's cool. No one's knocking that, but like who yeah, I don't care. You can like what you like. That's just not like yeah, if they show stuff in Mexico that they don't show, okay. That doesn't matter. That's relevant if you live in Mexico. I definitely think Asian cinema and anime is getting mainstream in America. I think it's been mainstream in America. I don't think it's like getting mainstream. I think it is. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I would say anime already is super mainstream and Asian cultures. I don't think it has been for a while now. I don't think it's like I think it is. I'm gonna pull John Krasinski and grow a beard. Gonna wing it like James Cameron in '84. Yeah, pro beard. DBZ isn't mainstream in America. What are you talking about? DBZ is super mainstream in America. Everybody knows about Dragon Ball Z in America. People wear like the merchandise everywhere. The Broly movie did well here. DBZ sells a shitload of merchandise in the States. Yeah, DBZ is easily like one of the most mainstream animes in the West by far. I mean, yeah, is it at like a Pokemon level? No, but it's like not that far behind either. I mean, it's definitely like in the top 5 most popular. Who the fuck doesn't know what Dragon Ball Z is? Even if you don't watch it, but if you say it to someone, they know what it. People know what Dragon Ball is. I'm going to get rude. Guess the reason anime is no longer that mainstream in Mexico is because it is going mainstream in the USA. It was already mainstream in the USA. What are you talking about? Anime's been big in America for like 30 years. Like, this isn't new. What do you mean, man? Anime was huge in the 90s, and then it had a slight dip in the 2000s in the United States, and now it's big again. Like, do you not know about Toonami or like Suncoast Video or VHS anime and DVD? Like, anime's been big in America for a long time. Like, we didn't just now discover anime. Anime's been big here for a really, really long time. And I don't buy that, like, I don't buy that Mexicans are like, "Oh, Americans like anime, so I can't enjoy anime anymore." That doesn't even make any sense. You don't like it because Americans like it now? Why would that affect how you like something? Like, if you're a fan of something and then someone else, why would you not enjoy it anymore? That doesn't make any sense either. Like if you like the Beatles and then they got big in another country, would you be like, "Oh, now I don't like the Beatles anymore?" I'm confused. Oh, that's what you're saying, that you don't have access to anime like you did back in the back in the day? When you would the internet? I mean, I don't live in Mexico, so I don't know. What about the internet? You can't just watch anime on the internet in Mexico? That's what most people do here. I love this like breakdown of this. So you get the dub based on the US translation of the anime in Mexico? I'm not, yeah, you apologize. I'm just confused. I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I get if like you're having to watch anime filtered now, that may affect your enjoyment of it. I thought you were saying because like people in America like anime, that means people in Mexico don't like it anymore. I thought that's what you were saying. If you're saying that like it's affected how you get the anime, then that makes sense. The other one you were saying, I was thinking you were saying just like Mexicans are like, oh, we don't like it because Americans like it, and I was like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Why would you change your mind just because Americans like it? Yes, but people watch on the internet illegally, but watching it on TV or on some mainstream channel now is hard unless it's Dragon Ball. I don't really know how many people watch anime on TV in America, though. Don't most people watch it like on streaming services or illegally in the United States? I mean, does anyone show anime in the United States besides like Cartoon Network, Adult Swim stuff? I mean, who's watching anime on TV? Is that a thing? Yeah, does everyone use like Crunchyroll? Did you ever get the magazine in America? I remember someone sent a letter about what I'm talking about, but I was like, I used to read magazines, like anime magazine stuff. I can't remember. I mean, we're going back to when magazines were still relevant when I was like a teenager. I kind of miss magazines too. I liked how they were formatted. I feel like a lot of the internet is formatted after magazines. I don't know if there's, I mean, I don't have TV, so I don't know, man. I have no I mean, I have no idea. We used to get I mean, anime used to be on TV here in the 80s and 90s. I remember like Sci-Fi Channel would show anime, and then there was Anna Midnight on like Action Channel, and then there was Cartoon Network, and then they would show like some animes on like Kids WB and Fox Kids, where they would show like dubs, and like Cinemax and stuff like that would show anime movies and stuff. I mean, that's when I really got into anime, was on cable. But nowadays, I don't know if they play anime anywhere. I have no idea. Oh, the Anime Network's still around? Shit. Yeah, I mean, I got into the 90s with like Toonami and stuff, and it being on like cable channels, like, um, and then I'd buy DVDs. But in recent years, I don't. I've watched most anime on the internet, and I mean, I don't watch as much as I used to, but yeah, like I just watch it online. We somehow do have Crunchyroll here, but most people here want to see more deeply anime, get an unofficial streaming sites, or buy them on pirate stands. Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like anime's getting big, like in a lot of I mean, I don't think it's just like I don't think it's just the United States. I think it's probably. I mean, I'm assuming it's getting big in a lot of other places. I don't know though. Pat, what would your channel be called if you were on Pornhub? Pussy Rewind, where I would like review old pornos from like the 70s and 80s. Um, and not talk about anything modern. It would be like a retrospective on old porns. But the problem here is now McLeary wants to influence on the Spanish Latin American dubs, which is the problem. So, do you guys not get subs over there? Do you just watch dubs? Do they not make subs for animes for Mexico? Oh, goodbye, Madcap. Let's do that social network discussion soon. Oh, dubs, that's unfortunate. Super unfortunate, my friend. You need a lawnmower, you fuck. Come visit me in Florida. Are you a hot chick? I don't think you are. I don't know. I think HBO Max is probably backfiring on Warner Brothers. Yeah, the Suncoast and Sam Goodies. I miss going to Suncoast and Sam Goodies Hastings. I miss all those video stores. I like My Hero Academia. I mean, it's good. I think it's a little overrated. I'm not like in love with it like some people. Um, but I think it's like solid and fun. It's not like my favorite. I'm not obsessed with it. I'm like, "Oh my god, I've waited my whole life for this to exist." Oh shit, Pat, you're alive. Oh shit, Pat, you're alive. You're here, you're free. You're free, run, run free. People in Mexico do not like grass. Who knew? You're that guy who buys porno mags at the flea market, eh? Nah, yeah, you know the type. We smell our own. Those magazines are usually pretty stained, though. You gotta, like, clean them up once you buy them, if you know what I mean. Favorite current Adult Swim shows or Adult Swim shows ever? Lost in Content was great. Thank you, Tyler. I appreciate that. I'm not a hot chick, but if I was, I doubt I would invite you to creatively jam and create content. We could cast hot chicks in our indie projects. At least you're thinking in the right road, my friend. Like I said, since I live in the border, I used to experience it both ways. Mostly I bought the VHS Evangelion tapes from Musicland and Suncoast, and Evangelion did not air on some. I'm trying to think what my favorite Adult Swim shows of all time are. Frisky Dingo, Venture Brothers, Home Movies, even though I don't think it started on Adult Swim, but it became an Adult Swim show. Um, C Lab, uh, all that stuff like the Space Ghost Coast to Coast stuff, C Lab, then the Frisky Dingo, Venture Brothers, all those kinds of shows are the ones that I like really love on Adult Swim. The best one ever though is the one that's been on the last few years, which is Joe Pera Talks with You, which I think is my favorite show that's on currently. I think it's a masterpiece. Um, and I think it's the show that Adult Swim's been building towards since it started, where the irony and the humor and like everything they've been doing over the years, it's finally turned into just like art and poetry. And I love it. I'm obsessed with Joe Pera Talks with You. I think it's an amazing show. But when I was a teenager, all those other shows like Metalocalypse and stuff like that, I mean, those are the ones that I like grew up on and loved. What are your thoughts when I say Will Stevenson thinks Invincible is darker than The Boys, which means it's not a decon? How is it not a deconstruction because it's darker? I'm confused. I mean, I think that I mean, I yeah, Joe Pera's the best one ever, but I mean, yeah, I'd probably I'm trying to think. It's probably between like Venture Brothers and Frisky Dingo were the ones that I just like am obsessed with and think are amazing, you know. And yeah, like home movies and I mean, I like Aqua Teen, I like all that stuff. Um I used to like all the Adult Swim shows. I mean, Super Jail's fucking amazing. I mean, holy shit, what compares to Super Jail? It's not a lack of curiosity, it's more of a lack of time to what you dedicate your interest to, you know? Super Jail's fucking I was rewatching Super Jail last year on HBO Max and I'm like, "Holy shit." I mean, a lot of my humor and the way I see the world is based off those Adult Swim shows, for sure. I mean, I think Adult Swim, like, spoke for a whole generation. I would have loved to have been writing or working on Adult Swim at that time in, like, that part of the 2000s. Just cheap Flash animation. Although, Super Joe actually has, I think, like, amazing animation. Best crime thriller TV show? I don't know, man. Off the top of my head, I can't think, like, what the best crime show is. Xavier Renegade Age. Yeah, that kicked ass too, man. I'm making my own superhero show. I'm making my own superhero show. I have big dreams. My name is Hyundai Sonata. So I'm trying to think like what show would even count as just like a thriller, crime thriller show. You know, that's like my favorite. I am Hyundai Sonata, and I'm gonna go on adventures to avenge my father and represent peace and love throughout the galaxy. Hyundai Sonata, I knew your father. You killed my father. You will join him. The Flat Chested Banshee. Any thoughts on Amazon's making a ridiculously expensive Lord of the Rings prequel TV show? I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. I prefer the naked to the being afraid part. Big O had that opening song that sounded like a Queen song. Big O, Big O, oh, oh. Pat likes reality TV Discovery Channel, specifically Naked and Afraid. Pat's auditioned for that show several times, sending only pictures of his penis with a smiley face taped onto it with a sticky note. The producers have still not written him back after 5 years. My name is Slav. I like to have peanut butter and raisin on celery sticks and stick them deep in my mouth, 'cause I think it tastes so good. I like to crochet with my mother. She's my best friend. She says I'm a very special boy. How am I supposed to experience mainstream Mexican channels on what they broadcast? What can you give? Am I supposed to like get an antenna and connect to like Mexican channels? Hey, you guys, I miss Meatwad, man. I mean, I grew up in Texas. Hey, man, go watch that Mexican anime, man. It's really good. Mexican anime. I like that Kenshiro shit, man. I just moved to Ohio. I mean, I don't know. I lived in Pennsylvania for a while and I moved here. I'm from Texas. I don't like live there currently. I don't know why I live in Ohio. Any overlooked TV shows you would recommend? My So-Called Life. Um, Nowadays, probably China Beach, 30 something shows like that people don't talk about anymore. There's a lot of great shows that were only on for like one season that were like really interesting shows. Like there's like 100 shows like that. It is what I am trying to say. In South Texas, you can receive Mexican channels, and here on my side, we can receive CBS, NBC, and ABC. We like to watch reruns of CSI. Sliders, man. Jerry O'Connell, man. That's right. Totally forgot about that show. Fuck, that was kind of popular for like 2 years. Erie, Indiana, that's a pretty underrated show. No, I've never been hit with a dustpan, but I'm still waiting. In the heights, nobody saw it today. He was underrated as fuck, and he stole French music. Right behind you. What the fuck? Don't say shit like that, Tyler. Yeah, Erie Nana rules. It's like Twin Peaks for kids, man. Good shit. I don't know, but Lizzie Kaplan having sex on a show and being naked can't be all that bad, right? There's got to be some qualities to that, of course. God, Lizzie Kaplan, fuck, is she underrated? She's up there with Aubrey Plaza and like Mary Elizabeth Winstead. They could all just be in something together. I don't know why In the Heights bombed. Let's sum it up, all right? IP wasn't as big as they probably hoped. Miranda isn't as mainstream as far as like movies go as I think they thought, or at least it's just not as popular as he was a few years ago. Post COVID, probably only really big movies get people excited right now with big IPs. Releasing on HBO Max at the same time. And while a robust marketing campaign, perhaps a poor marketing campaign didn't really sell people on the movie. And I think people really didn't attach themselves to the cast. And people, I don't think they really did a good job with like getting the music out there and kind of like the style of the movie. I don't think they actually did it. I think they over marketed it, but I don't think they did a great job with the strategy of their marketing. Yeah, if Lizzie Kaplan was in there, yeah, if we had that trifecta, it pisses me off. Michael Cera, it's like you got to be with all of them. Don't remind me. That makes me seem old. Jesus Christ, Scott Pilgrim came out 11 years ago. Fuck. There's something together? Maybe more like. All right, guys. Well, I gotta go close the pool here at my apartment complex, and my back's fucking killing me since I pulled it yesterday, and I'm kind of upset I didn't make my video yesterday. I didn't have a bad day. I didn't waste my day, but streams are always kind of draining because they're like long, and then you're like, oh, did I really need to spend my time on this? But it was nice talking to all you guys again. I missed you guys. Yes, Kenny Ortega was supposed to do it in 2011. I do know. But it was nice talking to you guys again. It was nice to do a classic box office addict sort of thing. Thank you for tuning in, guys. So, I'll miss you guys.